All right, we'll get going in 2 minutes, folks. 2 minutes. See some familiar names in the crowd. Want to welcome you guys to the podcast. Thanks for tuning in tonight. All right, we'll get going in 2 minutes, folks. 2 minutes. Oh, good little familiar names in the crowd. Want to welcome you guys to take the feedback off.
This is the SmartFind Express system calling for using the telephone. Please enter your PIN followed by the star key. To listen to a job offer, we have a substitute assignment available. Laura Ortino. St. Matthew, Catholic.
All right, Coach, we'll get going here. It's 7 o'clock, and we'll stick to the practice plan. All right, good evening, everyone. I want to welcome everyone back to another episode of Pre-Snap Read, the podcast brought to you by Capital QBs. I'm your host, Coach Ron Raymond, and tonight we have a real treat in store for you. We're thrilled to have a Canadian football guru joining us, a coach with an incredible wealth of knowledge and experience in the game. He's been an offensive mastermind, mentor to countless players and coaches, including yours truly, and a true innovator in the world of football. I'm talking about none other than Coach Jamie Barresi. Coach Barresi has made a significant impact on the football landscape, particularly in Canadian football. He's known for his comprehensive coaching philosophy, his expertise in developing quarterbacks, and his ability to implement quarterback-friendly offenses. And tonight we'll dive deep into his coaching philosophy, discuss the unique aspects of Canadian football, explore pre-snap read strategies, and much more. It's going to be an enlightening and informative conversation, that's for sure, to benefit coaches, players, and football alike. So grab your playbooks, take a seat, get ready to gain some valuable insight into the world of Canadian football with Coach Jamie Barresi. Without further ado, let's get this podcast started. And good evening, Coach.
Hi, Ron. Thanks for having me. Really appreciate being here. I'm honored to be here. Not quite certain I understood who that person was that you were describing, but I appreciate the kind words.
Yeah, no, hey, you know what? We in 2013 when you came to Ottawa, and I was lucky to have a friend in Coach Luigi Costanza to bring me on to introduce you, and I was really proud and honored to coach under you with at Ottawa U as a quarterback receiver coach. And you know what, Coach? Looking at your background, my God, it's a distinguished background, and you want to give us a little bit of background, how you got started and where you've coached in the past.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I was a student athlete. Well, I won't say student athlete. I'll say student. I did play at the University of Ottawa, and I came into that school and that program just after their 1975 team, which was one of the best teams that was ever assembled. I think there was 5 Hall of Famers from that team, as well as I think about 21 or 22 pro players. And anyway, I came into that group, and obviously I had to sit around for a long time. I was very fortunate. The coaches I had there, Dwight Fowler was my first coach, and he was there for a while. And then I had Jim Shirelli, and then Cam Innes came, and he really helped solidify the program. But I always had this inkling to coach. I was in studying kinesiology at the University of Ottawa. I had two professors that really had a big impact on my career. They were both graduates of Penn State doctoral program, and they realized that I had this bend towards coaching, and they said, you ought to try to see if you can get onto that staff at Penn State and start a graduate program yourself. And that's what I did. And coaching is, you have to be very, very lucky in many ways. A lot of it is about who you know. And so I started classes there. And one of the first people I sit beside in my class was Paul Alexander. And I'm not sure if many people know that name, but Paul was a very close friend to me. And he was a grad assistant on the Penn State team. And he kind of opened the door for me there. And that's kind of how I got started. It's a long story how it all really became official. I don't want to get into that, but that was a great experience for me. And at one point, that grad assistantship, it was only for 2 years. And Coach Paterno, he suggested that I go to the University of Florida. A close friend of his was the head coach. His name was Galen Hall. And anyway, I went to the University of Florida. I was very fortunate to be there. Kerwin Bell was our quarterback. Emmett Smith was our running back. I finished there after 2 years, and I wanted to go back to Penn State because I wanted to finish my doctorate. And I did that. Coach Paterno took me back. So I was there for about another 5 years. And again, I was very lucky to be in a room with a lot of great coaches. And one of them who was sitting right beside me and is a very close friend of mine was Jim Caldwell. And, he had a very meteoric rise, and I was able to kind of follow along with him. We were both there for about 5 years. He was coaching the quarterbacks, receivers. I was helping him. And he became the head coach at Wake Forest. And I should say we're very lucky, obviously at that time, the program was at its peak. Every 3 or 4 years, Coach Paterno could promise a recruit that we were going to play for the national championship. And that's what we did. So there was a lot of great players there, a lot of big games to play. Common opponents were Alabama, Notre Dame, played a big game against the University of Miami. And so it was a big time college atmosphere. And, obviously I loved it. I lived in the locker room. Literally, I didn't have a place to stay in State College only by my choosing. I just loved what I was doing. And I'm not sure if many people know about those types of situations. When you say a locker room, it's not the place that you would think of as a dingy place. This was a place that was monitored by 3 or 4 janitors. It was very well kept. It was a showpiece for recruiting. And the locker room included all of the amenities that you could imagine. And I had my office in there as well, which was my own office, which was great. And film rooms, weight room. I was probably living the best life of anybody on that campus or anybody in that town. We had 2 square meals every day. And so that was great. And I was doing football a lot. It was a great experience. Coach Paterno would always bring in some guest speakers to talk to our staff. One year he brought in Mark Tressman, and I got to know Mark a little bit. That was very enlightening. He was running the state-of-the-art offense at the University of Miami. The next year he brought in Bill Belichick when he was at the New York Giants. And that was very interesting day when he came in, and he was showing us the New York Giants defense and how they were able to utilize Lawrence Taylor, and he showed us all the film, and we realized that this guy was a really different cat. It was a very different athlete, and they played him all over the field. And after about an hour of this presentation that Coach Paterno would spend $1,000 for, our defensive coordinator said, we can't do this. And it was really state-of-the-art stuff. And, he was a very special player. And, Coach Belichick was there for the day, and he shared a lot of stuff with us. But so anyway, from there, I was lucky. Coach Caldwell became the head coach at Wake Forest University. I was really torn as to whether I should leave Penn State. He did promise me a chance for advancement. The thing about being at Penn State, none of those coaches ever left. And so I knew that, some of those people were going to be there forever. And I was never really going to be able to move up. And so going to Wake Forest, I was able to become, in charge of my, how can I say, the offense. I was the quarterback coach. And from there, we spent 8 years there, myself, Coach Caldwell, a lot of good friends of mine who are now coaching in the NFL. And then from there, I went to the University of Central Florida. I was very lucky to go there because now that my head coach was a former NFL quarterback, and I'm not sure if many people would remember the name Mike Kruzik, who was Terry Bradshaw's backup. And so he really had a big, as well as the other coaches, but he had a big impact on me and how, to operate practice for a quarterback. And if this was in Orlando, we had great players, players that you probably, wouldn't realize had gone to the school, like Asante Samuel, for instance, Dante Culpepper. Yep. Anyway, Coach Kruzik was a very good taskmaster for me. He had a very sophisticated idea of the passing game. If you were the quarterback there and, we would run Saturday practice, our pass skeleton would be 30 minutes. It would be fast paced. You might have 4 kids on scholarship, but the only kid that was going to get reps was a starter. And we were going fast paced, and it was hard because that kid had to take drops in the heat of about 90 degrees. I mean, we would practice on Saturdays and in the spring when it got quite hot, and this guy just had to keep going over and over. But the thing that he really put in my mind, Coach Kruzik, was that in order to get good at this position, you really needed to be exposed and get as many reps as you can. And I kept getting that being reaffirmed to me, especially when I listened to some of the quarterbacks that are in this day and age. They rarely do they want to give up a chance to take a rep in practice. And Peyton Manning was like that. Tom Brady was like that. If you were the backup, you had to watch and learn. So it had a big impact on me about, how important taking reps are and seeing things as many times as possible. I don't want to get into this too much, but a lot of my doctoral work was about development of expertise. And so a lot of it coincided with the things that I was hearing about and learning about in the classroom. The whole Malcolm Gladwell idea of 10,000 hours, it's not him that came up with the idea. He gets credit for it, which I'm very kind of disappointed about. But, I was not that I was the one in charge that was responsible for the idea of 10,000 hours. There were many, many people back in the 30s that had come up with that idea. And so, again, a couple of the guys that were on my PhD committee were strong advocates. And this was long before Malcolm Gladwell was ever heard about. But anyway, I was fortunate to go to Central Florida. I learned a lot there. That unfortunately ended. Part of the reason there's so many places that I've been to is, once you get fired, you have to find another place to go and
or have good friends.
That's just the reality of this profession. And so it's no different for me. And not too many times that you get to be a Bill Belichick and stay for over 20 years at one place. And but anyway, at that point, our dismissal at Central Florida coincided with the point when Greg Marshall from Western became the head coach for the Tiger Cats. And I known Greg, and he asked me to become the coordinator for the Tiger Cats. And that was it wasn't a very easy thing to do because even though I was Canadian, I had grown up, I had learned the U.S. game pretty much. That was my whole thing, was the U.S. game. And it's very, very different. And very lucky that another person was in the room with me, and that was Paul Lapalisse.
Yep.
And so I was the coordinator. Paul really guided me along and was very helpful for me. Had a big influence on my career, and not only at that point, but later on. But the other guy that was very helpful was we had Danny McManus, and so he was a veteran player, and I just learned an amazing amount from him. It was very interesting for him to talk to me about 5-man protection, and it kind of just blew my mind. And he's explaining it to me, and I'm saying, really, this is what you've done on all your career, and and I said, this is what we're going to do, and this is what I feel comfortable with. And so he had a group of linemen that were very well, they knew it in and out. And our offensive line coach was a guy that had been a veteran line coach, Mark Murray. He understood that protection, all of the nuances, and I really embraced it. I really felt after, a couple games and a training camp that this was really something that could be a great weapon. And so, I coached, in Hamilton. We'd done very well. I think Danny had one of his best seasons. I learned a lot from him, I'll be honest. And, I think he threw for over 5,000 yards. The other guy that we had on our team who was phenomenal, who I really had a lot of respect for, was the guy named Troy Davis, the running back.
Yep.
And if I could just tell a story about him, because he was such an inspiration. He was a very quiet person. And I, had spent like 5 years in Florida, and I realized that he came from Miami. And so I kind of understood the culture. And he went to Iowa State, and I see the guy, and I everybody's telling me he's the back. He ended up second in the Heisman Trophy voting, I believe. He ran for 2,000 yards twice at Iowa State, and but when I saw him, he really didn't strike me as being very impressive, just physically. And then he told me he was a state wrestling champion in wrestling in the state of Florida. And then I started to understand what that might mean, that this guy, you don't want to deal with this guy in an alley. This is pretty formidable. Anyway, for the first 3 games, we're throwing the ball a lot, and he never says anything. And finally, after the 3rd game, he came in and he had his VHS tape, and he just said, "Watch this." And it was his highlight video from past years. And but that's all he said. And, again, you could never get this guy to say anything anytime. After games, he would probably, I'm pretty certain, I don't think he ever showered. He just went out the back door and went down Main Street right away, avoided and he would have had a great game, but avoided the media. Just terribly, terribly shy. Anyway, I bring the tape home and I'm watching this. I'm at home here in Hamilton, and I'm watching the video, and my mother watches it with me, which was a big mistake. And she said, well, she kind of looked at me like I was a dumbhead, and she said, "I think you should be calling his plays a little bit more often," and I was very grateful for the advice. But anyway, he ended up running for 1,800 yards that season. And so, we were running the inside zone play with Troy Davis, and when Danny McManus was the quarterback that was supposed to read the defensive end. And so if he ever pulled the ball, it was just like the whole crowd would have just gone crazy. And he did it one time on a 3rd and 1 call, and he ran, the defensive end crashes on Troy, and next thing Danny pulls it, and the whole defense is there to, tackle Troy. And you'd think the guy would score. He managed 4 yards on it, but anyway, that was
Danny Mac wasn't a big runner.
Not a big runner, but it was I really appreciated his heroics, and what a tough guy he was, what a quick release, and thing that was so intimidating. And again, it was a big indoctrination for me. We bring up American quarterbacks to try them out all the time, and so the litmus test was to watch them throw from the hash to the far sideline. And they would, you just watch their face as you showed them the dimensions of the field. First time an American kid had seen a Canadian field, and we say, okay, well, we need to throw the far out here, which is about a 42-yard throw, and it's got to be on a line on time. And for some, that's a long bomb. And anyway, Danny would come out and demonstrate for us, and that ball was on a rope, on a line, effortless. And so anyway, that was a big thing for me to watch that and appreciate that. And anyway, from Hamilton, I was very fortunate. Again, I went to BC and coached the BC Lions and Coach Buono, and that was just a great experience for me. If I don't know how much time we got, Ron, but I
remember in the meetings at all you kept saying that one of Waddle's famous quotes: "Big boys beat up little boys in the trenches."
Well, that's true, but the one thing that he did, and at that time, that team was before I got there, they would go 11-0, 12-0, and they would have first place wrapped up in mid-October or mid-September. And so that was the case when I was there. And we had great players, Dave Dickinson and G. Roy Simon, Jason Claremont, and really good group. And so mid-September, that's what happens. And so Coach Buono comes in and he says, he gives us like a package of plays, like 3 or 4 plays, and he says to us, "We're going to run this package in the second half of the Grey Cup." And, this is in September. He says, "We're going to work on this now. We're not going to show it to anybody, but we're going to have this for the Grey Cup game." And so, we still had 6 weeks of the season to go. And lo and behold, though, that's what happened. And we got to the second half and we ran these plays that, we played Montreal that year and they had never seen this before. And in the course of the second half, it was like worth about 150 yards of offense at a key time in the game. And the thing that was so good was that he played 3 quarterbacks that game. And Dave Dickinson started. Buck Pierce came in to run that certain offense. And Jarius Jackson was our kind of our third down quarterback. And so
I remember him.
He really made a point of, I saw quarterback development from a whole different perspective there. And it really isn't a fluke that he had so much success, Coach Buono, that is, because he really understood the essence of the position. He understood what it took to be good. He understood what it took for them to make a guy good. And so, I was very lucky to be there and to witness all of that. And we ended up winning a Grey Cup. And so that was great. From there, I went to Saskatchewan. Again, very lucky. I joined back up with Paul LaPolice, and had a great team. Went to the Grey Cup. Unfortunately, we had in the Grey Cup, we had the 13th man. And I don't know if anybody remembers that situation, and had the game won. And then Montreal gets to kick a field goal from 48 yards. They miss it. There's no time on the clock, but we had 13 guys on the field.
Were you in the booth or on the field?
Were you
in the booth or in the field?
I was on the field.
Okay.
So I saw the whole thing. And anyway, I kind of, I jumped up when the ball missed the first time. Then I saw the flags on the field, and that I knew this wasn't going to be good. And so it was what we thought it was. And anyway, we promised at the end, in the locker room, we would never talk about it again. So I've probably gone over my limit there. Coach Miller was our coach. He was a great man. Again, another guy that gave me a lot of great insight about coaching the position. Darian Durant was our quarterback. And
the quarterback, North Carolina.
Yes. When we started, there was a big competition there. And Coach Miller came in and said, "We're going to start Darian." I was kind of pulling for the other guy, but he was Coach Miller. He picked it perfectly, and Darian was a great competitor for us, a great player. And we got to the Grey Cup. He later won the Grey Cup, which he deserved. But anyway, so from there I was at went there with Paul. Paul became the head coach, and then I was the offensive coordinator at Winnipeg. We went to another Grey Cup. Unfortunately, we lost there. I went to Edmonton, and then from Edmonton, I became the head coach at the University of Ottawa. and I was very fortunate to be there. There was a lot of really good people there, a great experience for me, some great kids. Loved to recruit. I just loved recruiting, and I was very lucky to have some really great kids and some good coaches that were with me. And then that ended, and so now I'm back in Hamilton. I'm helping at McMaster. I coach the quarterbacks there. I've kind of gone full circle. Anyway, I'm sorry to take up. I'm working with Steph Potasic, great football mind, great person.
Oh no, Dave.
And anyway, so there's, I was listening to Rocky or Sylvester Stallone talk about his life, and he was saying how life is like a railroad train that's going by you, and sooner or later you got to jump on a car. And there's a lot of places that a lot of cars go by you, and then sooner or later you jump on a car and you never know where that's going to take you. So I jumped on different cars, and it was very interesting. So I've been very, very fortunate. But again, it's because of people I know. I wouldn't say it's because of any type of great talent, but if you want to survive in this business, you've got to know people.
Absolutely.
And anyway.
Yeah, and you know what leads me right into my perfect story, where I'm sure I don't know if you remember, like we talked about this earlier, and it's one of my favorite Jamie Breezy stories that I keep telling people all the time. Is that with your storied coaching career and your first year at Ottawa U, I think it was week 2 at Waterloo. I don't know if you ever recall that that moment where, and you just got to picture Waterloo, right? The Warriors. It's almost like, I don't want to say farmland, but it's out there in Kitchener, and we're there, and it's pregame, and the players were on the field stretching, and there's like 10 people in the stadium, and the home announcer comes on, and he goes to, and he's looking over the field, and he's going check, radio check, and he's going, all right, hey Warrior fans, when I say first, you say down first, and then 10 people yell down. When I say hit him, you say hard, hit him hard. And then you turned around and you just had this deadpan look in your face, and you said, absolute lowest point of my career right now. And there was a couple of guys, we just started laughing, but it was just like, anybody who's know you before game, like you were so dialed in before a game, and I think that just caught you off guard into the moment. And I don't know if you recall that. It was 2013.
No, I do, and I do remember being caught off guard by this, and what a great how different it was, or what I was kind of used to, and I really shouldn't maybe have said that, and because the whole thing,
but it was in the moment. It
was in the moment. The whole thing is about the game itself, and I've played since then. I've come to realize that the excitement is with the game, and so
absolutely.
Anyway, it did kind of, I remember this. You brought it up last week, and
hey, good icebreaker. You know what, Coach? Good icebreaker. And this is the beautiful thing about the sport that we coach in, right? If you don't have these kind of stories, and when you said, and I remember going to a coach's clinic, Lee Barrett used to put these Canadian football chat clinics on, and there was a coach from the States there, and he came up, and he was a coach who coached for like 40 years. And he said, guys, he goes, I'm the luckiest guy on earth. I'm the luckiest coach on earth. And he said, the reason why I'm lucky, he goes, I have a lot of good friends who's always giving me jobs. And and that's the true nature of the coaching circle, right? Of the coaching world, is that everybody has a circle of friends, and if you're good at what you do, you're going to get opportunities. And obviously with your background of coaching, you can see you did have a lot of friends to help you out and get you jobs, right?
Well, I was very fortunate. Yeah. Then, I mean, and just lucky that I was probably around some very talented people who were, they advanced. And anyway, it was, you're right. And so.
Awesome. All right, Coach, let's get into the pre-snap read podcast. And I wrote down the agenda, the schedule for all the people who are following on the internet. And I know some people are maybe not online on the Zoom. You can follow this on our Capital QB website or on our YouTube channel, and it's going to be recorded, so they'll be able to see the replay. But Coach, let's talk about your coaching philosophy. This game we play here is 3-down football. And you went from, to Penn State, Florida, UCF, 4-down ball. What was the biggest adjustment you had to make to your coaching philosophy when it came to 3-down football?
Well, when I came back to Canada, what was really striking for me was, being the play caller and, obviously not having the 3rd down. And I had called plays in the States, and, it was 4-down football. So having the 3rd down was one thing. But then, the game is drastically different. I mean, the motion, the line of scrimmage, the field dimensions, all of these things. And then the clock itself, the 25-second clock was, things are really moving fast. And so that I just felt that the tempo was one of the biggest things that I had to get used to. So that was a big thing. The other thing that I would say is, I can remember being at Penn State, and one year I coached the tight ends in the spring. And I mean, that was an amazing thing, which you don't see in Canada, is like 5 or 6 kids that are just dedicated to playing that position. And, we had our pick of kids, Kyle Brady being one of them, and 3 other guys who were pro players, not of Kyle Brady's ilk, but great players. And so having, working with those kids, and you realize, Kyle Brady was a 6'7" kid or 6'6". He'd weigh about 260. He could run like a receiver. He would catch like a receiver, but he would block like a tackle. And, these are very unique athletes. And so I remember working with them, and I was every day I'd see them do something and just couldn't get over, the size and their gracefulness, their strength, all of that. And so that was something about that game, the U.S. game, that was, we just didn't do that type of thing in Canada. You just didn't have those players, like that. And when I say that, you just don't use them the same way. And anyway, that was kind of an adjustment for me. The use of the fullback, we have great fullbacks in Canada, but we would at Penn State, Coach Paterno loved to run the power play and a counter play, and a lead back was a big part of it. And so we had some great players there as well. So one thing that he never liked to do was throw the ball over the middle. All the passes were going to the sideline or deep down the field, and that was just the way we played. That was our style. And we could pound the ball, and 3 yards was a great play. And so that getting used to that was a little bit different. Now, I did have some exposure at Central Florida where we would throw a lot, like maybe 45 times a game. That was our MO. So it wasn't like it was all new, but a lot of these things that the motion, all that kind of stuff, was very tricky to pick up. So
yeah, I remember when you're at Ottawa, one thing that I took from your philosophy that I didn't see a lot prior to that was you love to go with 6 receivers and then just empty backfield. And it really, and you did it at a point. I remember you doing it at a point of a game where, sometimes in the game, it's like a heavyweight fight and you're just like 2 and out, 2 and out, 2 and out. And then I remember you bring in the 6-pack of receivers. And really, it really caught the defense off guard.
Yeah, well, I remember this distinctly, and that's basically what I knew, and that was from my CFL days. And looking back in hindsight, and what I see that pretty productive now is, I watch Laurier, I watch Western. I do see the merit of having, a tight end surface, a fullback in the game, establish a good run game, a good play action game. Greg Marshall from Western does a great job with this. He kind of let me go by myself and do what we felt was necessary for the Canadian game. I kind of, in hindsight, as I was, went through the years at Ottawa, we were moving more towards a lot of more tight end surfaces and trying to find that big player, because it would give us more diversification. It was very hard we had a great quarterback initially. Derek Wendell was a great quarterback for us, and he can move around, but that puts a lot of pressure on those guys. And to run the protection as efficiently as that we did it with the Tiger Cats, it's difficult to do that. And we spent a lot of time training them on blitz pickup, but still empty formations present a lot of problems. It's if I'm a defensive coordinator, it's amazing for me. I'll say this. I know more maybe about defense and how to stop some of these things because I face it all the time. And so I've kind of evolved, in realizing the value of a true tight end surface along with a good fullback, and then working from there with a good sound play action. And you're right, though, that's what we were doing a lot of. And I know it did at that time. It caused problems, and for the defense, they eventually caught up to us. So you have to stay ahead of those guys. So
yeah, and one thing too, also, like you just mentioned it, the difference in coverages now in the Canadian Football League, like at the high school level or provincial ball, you see a lot of most of cover 1 or cover 3 zone or cut and hold. Now you're seeing a lot of more cover 2 lock, more cover 4. Match defense. A lot of people have a lot of theories on. I remember Warren Craney once at a conference saying, I believe he said, like in his first year, he brought in match defense, and he said he questioned it if he'd ever do it again in the first year because it's so hard to learn. It's really to really teach it and get it right. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I mean, again, I haven't taught match coverage. I hear that from our defensive coaches. They appreciate the value of match, and I think in a lot of ways they're teaching a match without really coming out and saying this is match coverage. And so not having been in the room where where I have to teach it, it sounds like it is very difficult. There's a lot of things that have to happen with it. My introduction to it was playing against the Argos, and Rich Stubler was a true match player or match coach. He loved match. I could, based on our formations, which were limited at that time, I mean, I could pretty well tell how they were going to line up, and I knew what they were doing. And, Orlando Steinauer was in the secondary. Michael Shea was a linebacker, and they knew exactly how to handle that thing. But from what I gather, it is very difficult. I know myself, and I urged, when I was at Ottawa, we had a really good defensive coordinator. I would often try to chime in on some of the things that would give us problems offensively without him having to be pushed. He probably realized already, but for me, if you can jump into 2-man and take away the quick releases, etc. If you have a good pass rush that can back that up. Anyway, these things, one thing that he does at Ottawa, which is really good, which I know causes quarterbacks problems, is he would often line up in a 0 look. And then from there, he had a great ability to disguise whether he was truly coming on a 1+ type of blitz, or if he's going to bail out and play like a double cut look. And so, to his credit, I know that is troublesome for a lot of young guys to face. And so anyway, I don't think I'm telling any great secrets here for defensive coordinators.
No, it's
yeah.
Anyway. And that's the one thing we're trying to do here at Capital QBs is really our mission statement here at Capital QBs is to develop the complete quarterback. And the thing is, when we're training quarterbacks, and I'm saying, it's good to be, all the passing game and all that, but if you want to be a true complete quarterback, one, you got to be an athlete first, because what our philosophy here is called lead. It's about leadership, extending the play, being an athlete, athleticism, and then decision making, right? And it's really tough for quarterbacks, and that leads us into our next segment here, Coach. Quarterback development in the Canadian Football League. And it just when I started this journey of doing the pre-snap read podcast, it's really, people say, you hear it all the time, and you probably hear it all the time too. How come we don't have enough Canadian quarterbacks in the CFL? And we could probably sit here an hour and say why. And I don't think we want to go down that road. But well, it's just we got to help our quarterbacks here in the Canadian game. One, I think we need to be in more competitive leagues. I think that's the number one thing. It's just quarterbacks need to see. I remember Drew Brees saying once, I was listening to his podcast, and he was talking about, and he goes, if there's any NFL general managers out there listening, he goes, the one thing, the advice I would say is when you're drafting a quarterback, take a quarterback who's seen a lot of stuff. And he gave an example on Richardson at Indianapolis, who played 10 games at Florida. And then he talked about Brock Purdy, who played 53 games at Iowa State. And it just made so much sense. He goes, quarterbacks need to see things. They need to play. And I truly believe in that, what Drew Brees said in that.
Well,
right.
Yeah, I alluded to that earlier in my talk about when I went to Central Florida and how Coach Kruzik was so adamant that in a 20 or 30-minute period of pass skeleton, you better be getting upwards of 55 plays or so. And so it was very fast. Those kids were just, again, we're talking about the heat in the spring, and it does get quite hot. And so, he'd made sure we had a lot of receivers, and they were there just to service the quarterback. And so, the one thing I would say to a young guy is, well, one is you got to make sure you get with a coach that truly understands this type of thing and how important it is to gear practice for the quarterback if this is what you want to do. Coach Kruzik was, if you have ever lived in Central Florida, in August, you can be guaranteed that there's going to be a thunderstorm that comes through every day at 3:00 during your two-a-days. And so he would preempt everything. He would read they'd have the radar and everything like that. And, normally practice would start with individual special teams, etc. If there was any threat of rain, everything got canceled except for pass skeleton. So in that situation, a quarterback is truly living in a very friendly environment, a development friendly environment. He knows he's going to get reps. When I started at Ottawa, there was an article about, it kind of coincided with an article that came out of the New England Patriots, and they talked about their fast offense and how they use one-word codes. And we did a lot of that. And I don't know if you remember that, but everything was coded.
Yep.
And maybe to a detriment, but I never spent time coaching the huddle. And so the thing that I felt was any type of play that was easy to call would be easy to execute. And so we had different systems, code systems, where we would use colors, which meant if you heard a color, that meant quick game. If you heard a U.S. city, that meant a certain type of protection. There'd be a route attached to it. If you had an NBA team, that would mean a certain type of play action, etc. So we could use just one word, and all of that made us go fast. And so that was one thing I really tried to implement at Ottawa, and maybe went too far with it, maybe. But in hindsight, I do see the merit of teaching a huddle, how important that is. But that was my goal, was to get the quarterback as many reps as he could in a small period of time. And, you have to be concerned about how much time the kids are on the field, etc. Pass skeleton, we were a pass-oriented offense. And so getting as many looks as possible was really an emphasis.
I don't know if you heard Coach Nick Saban talk after the Michigan game, and he said something really fascinating. And he says, you know what? He goes, what really gave us problems in the Michigan game where they lost, he goes, is they huddled. They huddled.
Yeah.
And he goes, and what it allowed us, because when you do no huddle, it gives the defense time to see what they're going to come out in their alignment. But when you come out of a huddle and you go, now the defense has less time to really see the alignment. Then now you play fast. Now you're seeing more of these sugar huddles, right?
Yeah.
And so
yeah, no, I saw that quote. That was very interesting that he said that. And so yeah. Anyway.
All right, Coach. So you want to get into quarterback mechanics here?
Well, yeah, let me just do a couple things first, Ron, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, I knew we would get off the track a little bit. I'm sorry.
Hey, the Stallone story. Let's get back in the car here.
Yeah. I'll just go through this. If anybody ever, let me see if I can make this thing go. Yeah. Okay. So if anybody ever wants to contact me, I've in Hamilton, I've gone out to help many kids. I don't charge anybody anything. So, and I usually will drive anywhere to, if somebody wants some help with their stuff. So, and I've got a lot of material. If anybody wants it, I don't, I copy as much as anybody. And so I'd be willing to send out anything. So there's my phone number, my email address. This was something that Coach Paterno always talked about. I've given this as a part of my talk many times. He'd always say that the wrong play called by the right quarterback has a better chance of success than the right play called by the wrong quarterback. And I think we've all been in this situation where, if you've got the right guy, your kids will follow him, and chances are he'll make something work. And otherwise, on the other side of that, he may be the great athlete, etc. But if he's the wrong guy, if he doesn't have that respect by everybody, sometimes it's just not going to work. So that's something that always stuck with me. The one thing that Coach Paterno would always say is you need to do the thing you're most afraid of doing, and then you become a very powerful person. And so this is something for a quarterback that they really have to understand and come to grips with. Do you really want to play this position? This means that you have to stand in the pocket when these people are running by you, and they're literally, trying to cause some significant damage on you. And are you going to have that type of fearlessness, that fire in your eye? Are you going to be able to do this and convince other people that you can do it? So this is a very unique position in sports. And so it takes a very unique person. So you have to be fire tested, and you have to, go through the different battles. You just can't walk out there and strap it up and think you're going to be good at this.
Well, I remember you saying a lot of times after our practices, when we talk with the team, you say, sometimes in life you're gonna have to do things that make you feel uncomfortable, and I use that all the time. And that's so true.
Yeah. Well, in this case, yeah, for sure. And so I'm sure all these guys that have made it to the level that they are, they've all given a lot of sacrifice. And this position, by all means, you're front and center now. It's not like you can hide somewhere. You're front and center. People will see. I'll just give you a quick story. I mean, at Penn State, when on game day, the team will dress in their facility where the practice field is. And what will happen is the kids will get on the buses and they drive about a mile to get to the stadium. And the buses, there's 3 or 4 buses. And so when I was there, I'm not sure how they do it now, but Coach Paterno would sit in the front seat and the starting quarterback would sit beside him. And so that was the ritual. And everybody, when they came off the bus, everybody knew who the starter was. And so everybody, no matter where you are, no matter what school or program you're with, people are going to know. And even if it's the little old lady who's the English teacher teaching grade 3 English, she's going to know who the coach is, and she's going to know who the quarterback is. And so that's how this rolls. And so with that, there comes a great responsibility. So anyway, this was something that, when I was at Penn State, we were able to visit the University of Alabama. This was quite a long time ago. And Homer Smith, he was the quarterback coach. He had coached many years at UCLA and then at Alabama. And he said, if you play another sport, it helps you as an athlete, but drilling yourself in football helps you as a quarterback. So you really have to be able to develop drills that are specific to that position. And so what does that mean? Well, how do you simulate a pass rush in drills? How do you simulate timing routes in your drills? It's one thing to come out and throw the ball and work on drop back, but the game, your skill is all within a 2.5 second frame. And there's a lot of processing that has to happen there. And you have to be very concise and precise in that amount of time. Your feet have to be right. Your eyes have to be right. Obviously, your throwing motion has to be tight. You can't waste any motion. I often will say, and I'll bring it up later, that if I can watch a quarterback's feet and know what's going on in his brain. And
Right.
so if they're concise with their feet, I get a sense that he knows what he's doing. He's throwing on rhythm. I know he's an operator. He knows how to handle the pocket. If I see him all over the place, if I can see his eyes darting back and forth, then I get worried. And so that's on the coach to train them, to do a progression, to teach them properly. I just want to bring this up. Okay, so I'll do this quickly if you don't mind. In Notre Dame in 19, and I shouldn't be doing this because I'm not a Notre Dame fan. Coach Paterno, it would he we would play Notre Dame, and he'd always talk about how this all the tradition at Notre Dame is just a bunch of crap. He'd talk about Newt Rockne. He'd say Newt Rockne was a drunk. He died of alcoholism, or not Newt Rockne, but the Gipper died of alcoholism. The Newt Rockne, he won all those national championships, but they didn't play anybody. The national championships they won during the 40s, everybody was at war. They didn't defend for it. They didn't go to a bowl game till 1970. So he would go on and on about this. But anyway, and so I kind of fell into this. But this was very interesting. Joe Theismann, who played at Notre Dame, great player, came to Canada, played for the Argos, then went back to the States, played for the Redskins, was a 2-time Super Bowl MVP, great career. Okay. And so then after many years later was Joe Montana. We all know about that guy, how great he was. And so, Super Bowls, etc., one of the greatest of all time. Any poll you look at, he's one of the top football players of all time. And then in between those two guys, exactly in between those two guys was Tom Clemens, who, anybody in Ottawa knows.
Yep.
Came to Ottawa, played for the Tiger Cats, was the Rookie of the Year, won several Grey Cups, was the MVP. But then he went on to become a coach. And Paul and I, LaPolice, we went to visit him, but he was Brett Favre's coach. He then became Aaron Rodgers' coach, and now he's still coaching in Green Bay, and he is Jordan Love's coach. And he's done a great job. And so a lot of, again, you pick up things from a lot of people. And, not only was he a talented player, but it looks like he's a pretty good coach. He's mentored some very good players. And so this is one thing that he would say that you would, part of your philosophy is you never want to throw late over the middle. You don't want to have premeditated throws and no blind throws. So I try to instill that in our guys. This is a quote that he gave regarding Jordan Love. Now, the thing that's very interesting about this, he gave this back in March, and he had a very strong feeling that Jordan Love was going to be a great player. Now, many people never thought that Jordan Love would be as productive as he was, but this is what he said, and I'll try to go through it quickly. It's the things that we've worked on most, which is footwork, the proper drop, going through your progression, not getting stuck on a receiver, being late with the ball. We work on different route concepts each week. We did a lot in the spring, but then you have to see it play out when you have a defense out there. You have to be able to go from 1 to 2 to 3 to your outlet quickly. You can't lock on a guy. You have to process information quickly, figure out where to go, and your footwork plays into that as well. If your feet are right, you're seeing things right, you're able to decide where to go with the ball, etc. He goes on to say he's probably getting to the point where the game is slowed down for him. When that happens, you kind of see things in slow motion. You see where guys are moving, you see where guys should go, and you're able to react quickly. Now, he made that quote in March, and so it really did play out. Jordan Love had a phenomenal season. Unfortunately, the last 3 drives of his game against the 49ers didn't work too well, but he had a great season. And so this was what he says there really sums up everything that you need to know about playing the position. And, footwork, progression, moving from 1 to 2 to 3 to your outlet very quickly, not getting locked on anybody. These are things that he worked on a lot with this guy. And so it really does kind of act as a summation of what's important to play the position. When you talk about drops, this was something that I always felt that, you had your drops and your timing and your, one step, we timed everything. The ball gets out in 1 second to 1.2, 3 step. Okay. And you can do this on your own. You can get these timing factors on your own.
Hey, just to go back to that 5-step, do you see a lot of 5-step these days at University
yes,
level?
I do, from the shotgun. Yeah, definitely. And the one thing I wanted to bring up, and I feel it's a lost art, is the quarterback underneath the center.
Yeah.
And I often go back to YouTube video from the 70s and the 80s where these guys are underneath center all the time. And I know myself, playing in that era, I mean, that's all I would work on was like a 7-step drop.
Yeah.
And you watch and you see what is done for these guys, the athleticism that has been sacrificed as a result, because now, the kids will come to you and say, well, I step to base. Okay, which means I take one step and I'm going to sit in the pocket. Well, I just feel it really has destroyed the rhythm in the passing game in many ways. I understand it. I can see where it's important, but I feel they've lost something there. And I do feel it's important that they work on these things. With our guys, I showed them video of different players from the 80s and the style of play in the CFL at the time, and showed them video of Russ Jackson. He was a great player. But he'd have a 5 or maybe sometimes a 9-step drop. The athleticism, the quickness is so, it's phenomenal when you watch it, really. And so you see a whole different type of athlete at the position nowadays, as a result.
I agree.
Anyway, I mentioned this earlier. Your footwork is a window to your brain. And then these things are, I don't need to get into this too much, but these are the routes that you would run, the depth. This would be, the type of drop you would take. This would end up being the depth that you would be at. So these things would all have to be measured out. And it depends on who you're dealing with as your athlete. Some of these things, it's not like this is locked in stone, but these kind of give you a guideline as to how deep you should drop with different types of routes and what type of steps you should be taking. And again, that could vary based on the type of guy that you have. When we talk about a passing game, we talk about progressions. Are you going to go across the field horizontally? Are you going to progress from top down? Are you going to make a mic read to tell you which side you're going to go to? Are you going to have a triangle read where you're going to go top to the bottom left, bottom right, etc.? These are all different ways to categorize your plays. And I think it's important as a coach, as you present something to a quarterback, that you could give this to him and make a category for him. Now, you would say to him, okay, on this group of plays, these are horizontal reads. That means you're reading from one side to the other. This group of plays, and they could be categorized another way, and you could present it to him with a different name. And you could tell him, as soon as he hears that, he says, okay, it's top down. Okay, and he knows how to proceed with that. Yeah. You give him a group of plays that are based on what the Mike linebacker does. And so this will make his learning very, very simple. And anyway.
And what's the philosophy of the Mike read? Like,
well, for instance,
you go opposite way?
If the mic goes one way, you're going to read the other way. It's a numbers read.
Okay.
There's many guys who believe in the numbers philosophy. I think it's very valuable in certain situations. So basically they're saying, okay, if we have numbers over here, meaning if they outnumber us to one side, we're going to throw and make our progression the other way.
Right.
When I was in the States at Central Florida, we were always reading rotation, which is a form of numbers, meaning, okay, they're going to rotate this way. That means they're going to be less numbers the opposite way. And so the mic read, the numbers read is very prevalent for a lot of teams. It's kind of common sense, really. You just don't want to throw into the teeth of the coverage. And so you've got to be able to give the quarterback that ability to see it, to know it, and have confidence to go away from this. Anyway, these are different things that I think would help your organization of your playbook and how you talk to your quarterback. This is an example here of maybe a horizontal read. This is something that we do at MAC, where we're starting our eyes are over here on the left side, and we're going from one, and really from there, it looks like we're going to this guy to here, but we could easily be here to here. And it's an example of a horizontal read. Okay. And so he's making a decision pre-snap, what he's going to do with this one here. If he's got softness, he'll take it. If not, he can come back to this triangle here. And so anyway, that's an example of having something that's organized in a horizontal fashion. The one thing that I see happening a lot, and I go and I like when our season's over at Mac, I go and help a high school team, and during the summer I was coaching the junior Tiger Cats, and sometimes I see different teams, use a progression that you can never really understand, and so the thing that you have to as a coach, you have to be able to give something to the quarterback that is going to be compatible to how he can process information. And if you don't mind, I'm going to just bring this up. When I was at Penn State, I was very lucky. I had on my committee 2 people who, in the academic world, who helped design fighter pilot cockpits. Okay. Wow. And the system, the situation for a fighter pilot is really no different than for a quarterback. And so you've got to be able to process information systematically. And what was happening to many fighter pilots was the design of the cockpit was made in such a way that it wasn't very compatible to his reactions. So for instance, just think about working on a stove. Imagine if they changed the elements on the stove. Okay, how quickly would you be able to manipulate that button on the left bottom, knowing that that element might be over on the other side? So what was happening to these fighter pilots was they were looking at their altimeter thinking they were going up, and they were actually going down. And so these types of things. So it's not much different. I know I'm getting way out there, but whenever you design a play, you want to make he has to do work, and he has to do work in a logical fashion. And so you have to be able to set it up for him where he can go from 1 to 2 to 3 in a very easy manner. You never want him to go from 1 on one side of the field to 2 all the way over to the other side of the field and then find his check down somewhere else. Just let him go horizontally and make the progression easily. Likewise, a top-down read has got to be done in a very organized fashion. Anyway, I'm sorry I got off.
Oh, no, it's hey, this is what this podcast is about. It's about to help the young quarterbacks. And you know what? Here's the thing. When I look at this mesh concept, some people have the M run the over, and then the Y would run the dig. This is a little different. I've never seen this concept before.
I mean, we do this 100 different ways.
Yeah.
And we'll do it. We'll change the formation, and we could start the progression the other way with the out being there, and it's very simple to adjust. And actually, when we install it, we do it the way you mentioned. I just happened to grab this as an example. So, yeah.
Here's another question for you. For a young quarterback with a concept like this, what would you say? How many execution it would take him to feel comfortable in this type of concept? Like, how many times does he have to run this concept, say in practice in a game, before he truly gets his decision making quicker? And because of all the defensive coverages,
the thing I'll tell you, I mean, I'm dealing with a lot of kids right now, but based on summer league and at Mac, and the thing, it's all dependent on who you're dealing with. You know what I mean? I can't give you a number.
Yeah.
I do know. I would believe in the kind of like the 10,000 hour rule a little bit here. You try to keep feeding it to them, and can you show them on film what's happening? That's a big thing. Can you talk them through it? That's a big thing. Kids learn in different manners. I wouldn't be able to give you a hard and fast number here.
Yeah.
The other thing that you consider, and sometimes, I learned the hard way. I mean, if you want to learn this, do this 50 times a practice. You know what I mean? And you can't do that, but that would really help. But if you're going to have a whole game plan that's got 60 plays on it, and you see this once a day, maybe once a week, that's not going to help you learn this very quickly. You know what I mean? Anyway, You understand what I'm saying?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Just trying to see.
Okay, so Ron, I'm not sure where you want me to go right now with this.
And, this is fine. We can go right here.
Okay, so this was one thing that I was very lucky to pick up. Again, this is something that I would recommend. It's a quarterback profile. I've handed this out to many, many people. When I went to myself and Paul Lapalese, we visited Green Bay and we sat with Tom Clemens, and he really, if you ever follow him, he'll talk to you about how valuable the spring quarterback school was for the quarterbacks that he was dealing with. And he would put together this profile. And so he would break down a drop, for instance, like a 3-step hitch, and he'd have it all broken down into the different elements. So the first part of it was the getaway. And so the first step is the reach and then the crossover. So they would work on this and they would film it, and he would put a comment here about the reach and then the crossover. And then he would grade it based on control, how controlled the athlete was, how the finish was, what was the depth of the drop. You know, he would have specific goals for each of these things. Then he would talk about how the plant foot happened, how they targeted the plant foot. Okay. And so that would just be the drop, and that would be graded, and it would be filmed every day. And this would be a written sheet that much like a phys ed teacher would give to a student in a class who's doing maybe a gymnastics move or something like that. Okay. So that would all be graded on that. And then he would get into talking about the ball carriage, the next part of the drop, and where does he want the ball to be carried? Okay. And this is something you as a coach can be specific about. Myself, I like to carry it just off the breastplate. If you're right-handed, more towards the right shoulder. Is the ball being carried within the body frame? Okay. Does it ever leave the body frame? I always wanted it to be within the frame of the shoulders. And does he keep 2 hands on the ball? So these are all things that you, again, are making sure that he's doing properly. The height is very important. When you get a young guy, for instance, what do they like to do? Well, they'll drop the ball way down by their belt buckle. And, you know, really what you want to have done is a throwing motion that starts, from the breastplate and it's up and out in a very, so that there's not much of a draw. And, carrying the ball at the right level is really critical. This is a good example of a good ball carriage. And so as a coach, I would really think it's important for you to show them what good is. You know what I mean? Keep putting that in front of your player. What is a good example of the ball carriage? What is a good example of the release? This guy obviously is one of the best. And so you can see where, he's carrying this right at the breastplate, is slightly on the back shoulder, well within the frame of his body. 2 hands are on the ball, and he's ready to go. He's got in a really good, position with a good knee bend and eyes directed downfield. So get him those types of pictures. Then the next thing that you would talk about is the draw. What do I mean by the draw? Is basically it's when when one of the hands, the left hand, leaves the ball. So what happens to the ball as it's moving back? What course does it take? There's many different theories about this. And one of the best guys that you ever see would be a guy like Joe Namath, where the ball, for me, it's one of the best because the ball is up and out. It's out there quick. So what course does that take? Does the ball go down and around? Drew Brees. I mean, there's a lot of guys that will drop the ball and throw the ball with tremendous velocity and accuracy. Okay. Other guys, the guys that I like, not to say that I'm the end all and be all, but I like to see the ball get up and out. Tom Brady, for instance, Dan Marino. These are classic releases where there's really very little time from when the ball leaves the left hand to the time that the ball is brought up in the draw to the time it's released. And then what happens to the wrist? You see some guys that will turn the wrist in a certain way. I'm not a fan of that, but these are things that you want to be able to coach and show to your guys what's important. What type of rotation does he have with his elbow, etc., and what type of angle does he take to the high point? This is a great example here of where the ball is getting up, the elbow is at the just above shoulder level, and the elbow is now leading. Okay. Mm-hmm. Anyway, this is another example, which is this guy was a phenomenal thrower, but you can see, look at what he's done here. Mm-hmm. I mean, this is amazing. And if you ever watch this guy throw, he he was a shortstop in baseball. He was a phenomenal player. But look, I mean, many guys like Drew Brees would have this type of rotation with his wrist. Okay. There's many ways of doing it. Okay. And if I was coaching him, I would not change anything he's doing. Because if you ever watched this guy throw, and I remember vividly when he played for the Argos, I was just a little kid. That ball, you talk about throwing the ball from the hash mark to the sideline. He could zing it now. Anyway, but this is another example of how different the draw could be. So what you have to do as a coach is kind of work with what they're going to give you and try to make the most of that. Okay. What's happening with the front shoulder? So this is another point of emphasis that you would look at and grade his front shoulder. What is the line? What kind of discipline does he have with his left shoulder if he's a right-handed thrower? And what I would tell you is that you'd kind of like to have a closed shoulder, and you don't want that shoulder way open and where you could lose power. And so this is a great picture of, this is Joe Namath. You can see how that left shoulder is closed and he's ready to torque and turn, as opposed to having the left shoulder way open and he's lost the torque. He's lost the ability to turn. The next thing you would do is talk about the pull from left to right. Okay. How high is the hand? And when I talk about the pull, I'm talking about the left hand now. Okay. In terms of a right-handed quarterback, how does that hand work? And so you looked at this picture by Theismann. He's got his hand way out there. Nowadays, they'll teach you to keep that left hand in, okay, and so that you can turn your body quickly like a figure skater does. If you watch a figure skater with their arms out, they go slow when they try to spin. When they get their elbows in tight, now they can spin faster. And so this is something that you can work on. If you watch the great ones, they'll keep that left. It's like they call it bite the burger, and they'll keep that left hand almost underneath their chin, and they'll pull that left shoulder and that left elbow back and help them get rotation. This is a great example about, this is Justin Fields. So you can see how much different he is than this picture here.
Yeah, look how high his left hand is, right by his ear.
Yeah, I mean, he's really, and the phrase that I've heard many guys say is, well, you're going to bite the burger.
Yeah,
so
bite the apple.
He's a little bit off from the, biting it, but you get the idea. And so now this allows him to turn with a really good torque because he's kept everything in that. It's called moment of inertia. I don't want to get into all that stuff anyway, but that's a really critical thing. Okay, so then the point of release. Now you grade him on how the ball, at what point is the release, and what are the things that you're looking for? What is the height? What type of elbow flexibility do you have? What type of target line do you have? And so, I mentioned earlier that your ball should come through, and your elbow should be slightly above your shoulder. You want to make sure that ball is tracking the line of your target. Anyway, this is a great example here. There's better ones. Okay, you can see this is a great picture here with Brady. Elbow is up high. You can see what he's done with his left hand. He's got it tucked in there tightly, and the elbow is out in front of the ball. And so this is things that, at the point of release, great picture right here. Okay, full extension of the elbow. And the last thing to come off the hand are the fingers, in particular the index finger. So another good picture about, the relationship of the elbow with the ball. And again, this is something that, as you watch the video with your guy, you can keep showing him what is good and you compare it to what he is doing. And then from there, you could find different drills to help him if there's any weaknesses. Another great picture for Brady. You can tell I'm a Brady fan. Okay, then the follow through, and what are you going to do here with his follow through, his hips, his shoulders, his elbow, all of this stuff. The transfer, what happens with the back foot, what do you want him to do with his fingers, and being able to get the ball to snap. These are all things that you should be looking for, and you should give him specific criteria that he needs to focus on. So you can see where you could really break this down into all of these elements and give him a lot of meaningful feedback. And, the one thing I'll tell you is, and I say it to our guys, when you come out to throw at practice, you're not at the beach, okay? It's not like you're just tossing the ball around. You've got to practice a discipline. And there's got to be things that you are thinking about and you're doing it over and over and over. So anyway, these are things that he has to think about. And you don't want to make him a robot, but at the same time, if he's doing these things in his warm-up, then it becomes automatic. And when he gets to pass skeleton, he can process other information if this becomes automatic. Okay, so this is a great picture of a follow-through. You can see where, Brady is bringing his left hand, his throwing hand down to his opposite hip. He's got a good weight transfer. He's on the front knee. Eyes are right on his target line, and he's pulled his left shoulder back. So a great picture.
Absolutely.
Yeah, another great picture.
Yeah, and they always say like he's taking the money out of his side pocket, right?
That's exactly right. Yeah. So then you want to grade him on his ball tracking. Particularly what you're looking at now is the spiral. Is he snapping the ball? And does he get a good spiral? And so that's something that, if they're not throwing a spiral, you're going to have to look into what they're doing with their hand, how they're turning their hand, how they grip the ball. Are they choking the ball? Are they turning their hand in a certain way? Then you're looking at how the ball moves and then the velocity. And so there's ways to help them have good velocity, even if they don't have a strong arm. I mean, you need to grade that and be able to evaluate it. I can go on length about getting good velocity. I could show you a drill that we did. The anchor drill was so important. I'm 67 now. I can sometimes come out to practice and out-throw our guys. And I mean, I can put great velocity on the ball because I will, I'll have a good weight transfer, a good kinetic chain. I won't waste any movement, and I'll be able to use my legs and power the ball. This is a great picture here. This was Joe Namath, and you can see how I entitled this shoulder to shoulder, meaning that you want to start with your left shoulder pointed to the target, and you want to end with your other shoulder pointed to the target. Not quite all the way, but you want to make sure that everything moves in a circle. So if you were to draw a circle or draw a line from here down to here, you're really, and you follow the hand all the way around. This is really an example of all types of movement. All types of movement move in a circle. So that's basically what's happening there. So you want to make sure you've got a nice smooth circle that's going on, and you won't necessarily be able to do that. Show him this type of picture of himself, but he'll get a good illustration of what's supposed to happen. This guy had one of the best releases. You can see where the ball starts here by his breastplate, and it's just up and out, and the ball's out quick. There's all kinds of examples in sports about the right type of throwing motion. I always tell our quarterbacks, if you want to see some great throwers, watch a catcher throw down to second base.
Yeah.
I mean, they are jumping out of that stance. They're like a cobra, and that ball, if you're the pitcher, you better get out of the way real fast because they're coming at you really, really quick. And Johnny Bench, I know there's probably no one here, that knows who Johnny Bench was. He was one of the greatest. He's a Hall of Fame catcher for the Reds when they were, a great team. And he had you just see he's got a very powerful arm, powerful body. Had great lower body strength through his legs, and that really helped give him great velocity. This is a great picture. I mean, this is a great quarterback picture right here. And it's, a catcher that's throwing down to second base. The left elbow's tucked. The ball is held above close to the ear, elbows up, and he's ready to uncoil. He's got a good point with the left shoulder, and now he's ready to uncoil.
That's a good picture. That's a good look right there.
Yeah. Now, I mean, this is something that's going to come up a lot with your kids because they're watching all of these quarterbacks nowadays with these funny body throws.
Yeah.
Which I feel is important, but you better understand how to throw first. And, again, in different sports, you have different types of throws. And this is, Derek Jeter was one of the greatest at being able to throw a funny body throw, being able to kind of separate his feet from his arm and still be able to throw with great power. So, I mean, if kids, the one thing that happens in Canada, which I'm kind of disappointed about, the quarterback at Western, at University of Western, he is a pitcher. And you watch him throw, he really gets the idea of being able to torque and turn, and he's very powerful. And when I was in the States, many times you come across quarterback recruits who are also pitchers, and it's kind of up here you don't see that very much. You know what I mean? You don't see very many quarterbacks who also are a pitcher. You know, and so if you're a pitcher, you're throwing a lot, and you understand a lot about proper mechanics. Anyway, so this is obviously Derek Jeter. This is another, he's always in awkward positions when he's throwing. Imagine being the shortstop or the second baseman having to throw down to first base. These are all things that you should practice some way, somehow. When I was at Saskatchewan, I really appreciated Coach Miller because he'd always say to me, I was coaching the quarterbacks, Darian Durant. He'd say, take the quarterbacks down the other end of the field and just practice throwing from different positions. And so he would tell me, just have them make up a throw. And so, if you watch the quarterback in the pocket, it's very rare that he can just throw cleanly. He has to throw from a funny body position. So if you go through the film, you will watch him in the course of a game. There might be 5 or 6 different positions that he had to throw from. And they may not be very long throws, but they could be major gains. But sometimes these throws are not practiced or rehearsed. And it's a problem for somebody who does it for the first time under pressure. Joe Namath, this is a great picture here. This is when he was, probably pretty healthy. He's 2 feet off the ground.
Wow. Okay.
This is when he was at Alabama. Another great picture. I mean, he's quite a ways off the ground throwing, again, this is a kind of a funny body throw. This guy is one of the greatest at it, right? I mean, you can't talk about this topic without bringing this guy's name up. He does it from all different angles all the time. Again, you have to be careful how this is presented to a young guy. I think sometimes they'll lose their focus on what's really important, but this is something that needs to be addressed. That's, with a guy who's a little bit further advanced. Throw thoughts. Okay, so if you're a golfer, you have a swing thought. If you're a quarterback, you should have a throw thought. Tom Brady would talk about this. He would say, if I'm going to throw, the 3 things I'm thinking about is my first thing is the ball carriage. The next thing is the elbow leading. And then the third thing is to the hip pocket. So he got it down, all of the movement, all of the action that he had to go through for which each throw, he got it down to basically 3 basic things: ball position, elbow coming through, and then follow through. And he probably got it reduced to a much lesser idea. And so if you can unclutter the quarterback's mind, okay, and again, if he can get reps and reps of throwing, he's confident in his ability to throw. He doesn't have to be thinking about mechanics when he's in the middle of pass skeleton. And that's where your goal as a coach should be. So this is, I won't go into this too much. This is if somebody ever wants this, I'll be more than willing to send it to them. You talk about a kinetic chain and what is the transfer of weight, etc., from the back foot to the front foot. There's got to be a good, smooth chain and good chain of movement. And this is just a series of pictures, okay, and they're stop framed, okay, all the way through. And I could talk about this at length, okay, and this is something that Joe Namath put together. And there's just a series of pictures from moment to moment in the throwing motion. It's actually 8 pictures from the front, 8 pictures from the side. And, if I did this fast, you may be able to, not really. Okay. But anyway, you get the idea. This shows you what's happening at every position along the throwing motion. It'd be worth somebody, if you wanted to dive into this, I'll be more than willing to send it to you. It's worth reading and looking into. Ron, I'm not sure how we're doing for time. I could go into this as well. This is scramble rules. I think you wanted to get some plays. Is that right?
Yeah, no, yeah, we can go through the scramble rules quickly and then get into the passing friendly concepts for young quarterbacks.
Okay. Well, this is something that I've put together. This is scramble rules if you're in the red zone. I don't know if it really matters if you're in the red zone, but the quarterback, this is really critical. The red zone is so important. And many times you're going to get heated up here, meaning that their team is going to not allow you to get to the red zone. But once you get to the red zone, they're probably going to blitz at some point. And so these are certain things that you want to be able to keep instilling in your quarterback. So first thing is he's got to stay poised and understand how to resist the pressure and what to do and how to scramble. So always scramble and when you do that, you want to be able to run and react to pass. So your idea is you want to run to throw. So your eyes have always got to be downfield. Keep your eyes downfield. We work deep to short, work laterally for width, attack the line of scrimmage, and give your receivers a chance to adjust their routes and work to get open. You want to make sure you make good decisions. Take what the defense gives you. Remember that, if you're on the 20-yard line and you have a good kicker, we have points, okay? We've got a chance to kick, okay? Reserve the right to kick. Always very critical. So if receivers stay covered, run, get upfield immediately, be decisive, find a vertical seam and knife the defense. That means be decisive. If you don't see anybody open, don't get yourself in a bind where you're going to have to take a loss. Find a crease, get to where you need to be, get down, and again, we'll live for another day. Always have an awareness of the first down marker. If no one breaks open and you are in a no chance situation, avoid the sack. So you got to burn the ball in a safe area. So it's very important as a coach that you are talking to him about what intentional grounding is. Okay, I see this happen a lot. And what will happen, the ball's thrown. And so people will say, well, why don't they throw the flag? Well, the thing is with the mechanics of the referees, they will talk about it first. Not that this matters for quarterback. They will talk about it, discuss it. But your guy has to know what the grounding rule is. And for the most part, if you're in the pocket within the tackle box and you intend to ground the ball safely, a receiver must be in the vicinity. Now, if you get out of the tackle box, okay, the ball must cross the line of scrimmage. No need to be in the vicinity of an eligible receiver. So that needs to be instilled. Now, that rule, I think that's pretty much universal in the high schools and in the youth sports. It may change from place to place or crew to crew. So it's always good to go over it with the referees and sometimes remind them what you think the grounding rule is. Live to see another down. I mentioned that. Okay, the never list for the score zone. Never throw late, deep. Okay, never throw a ball across your body on a scramble throw. Never force throws. If you can run it for as much as you can get by throwing, then run it. Remember, we have points. Never premeditate and never take a sack. Anyway, do you want me to get into some concepts here?
Yeah, let's go into the concepts. And we'll
Okay.
from there, that'd be great.
See what I can do here. Got a lot of stuff here. Let me do this first, okay?
Yeah, not a problem.
Can you see this?
Yeah, the anchor drill.
Anchor drill, yeah. So this is a drill that I feel is very important for the quarterback. And basically, when you do this, you get a very good feeling for how much power you can create with just keeping in a certain type of stance. So this young man is a kid that's coming out of Cardinal Newman right now. And all he's doing is he's placing his left foot on the right shoulder of the target. Can you see this, Ron?
Yeah, I can see it. It just
Okay.
The internet connection is not the greatest here.
Okay, but anyway, if you look at his left foot is framing the right shoulder of the target. He's carrying the ball in a very deliberate position. Everything we're doing is very deliberate. Okay. He's got a good base to start with his right foot. And then he's just, as I talked about, ball carry, elbow, and then hip pocket. And he's just trying to be as deliberate as he can. This is a warm-up session. And just trying to get him through this part of the practice. And so when you do this, okay, he's focusing on all the checkpoints. Again, ball carry, where his feet are, where his elbow is going to be, how he follows through, and he's making a deliberate attempt to be accurate. Anyway, let me go back to something else. Okay, so let's see here. Okay. So tell me if you can see this, Ron.
I can see that. It's Casey bringing back some memories here.
There we go. Okay. One of my favorites concepts. So let me just describe it first. So this is, sorry, I may not be able to freeze this, but that's okay. This is a 32 formation. We've got an X receiver who's running a lock comeback on the outside. Okay, we've got the W receiver who's got a read route. He can run a dig or run a go. The number 3 receiver to the field is the R. He's running a shake. Okay, he's hot. He can stop if he's got zone. If there's a clear field in front of him, he'll stay in on the move. And to the field, the W is running a sight adjustment. That means if the middle is open, he can bend it to the middle. And then the Z is going to run a curl. And again, I'm not giving this true justice here. I should be talking about splits, etc. Very important. Passing game is all about spacing, timing, and accuracy. So where these guys are distributed is very important. But what we're doing as a quarterback, we're reading this from left to right, okay, from the out to the vertical or the dig to the under, okay? And so this is a pretty easy progression. Again, it's basically a horizontal progression. And so if he has access to the out, he'll take it right away. If that's not there, then he'll read what's happening with the dig and the under, and then he can go right to the check down. So we'll go through this, and I'll explain what's happening here. So right now, he doesn't like the throw to the boundary X. He's got press coverage. I think he really wants to take this adjustment to the number 2 receiver, but he gets forced and flushed from the pocket here. Okay, he has to move. You can see where the number 2 receiver sees no one over top of him, and he's got a chance to make a big play. That's a great look for that adjustment. So the first 2 guys get knocked off the board for him. Now he's going to the shake coming across the field and makes a great, does a great job in the pocket, slides and keeps his eyes downfield and makes a pretty big play. Okay, this is against Windsor. So now he's got access to the throw at the top, and he's going to take it and throw it on time, and pretty easy decision. You could see if you're the quarterback in that position that this would be a pretty easy decision to make. Our number 2 receiver is wrong. He should be running a dig, okay, because the defender over top of him is not gettable. And then you can see where everybody else fits into the pattern. Running back is a little late getting out. Okay, so here's one where we're going to get an adjustment by the number 2 receiver. Right there, everybody should know. When I say everybody, I'm talking about the quarterback, and the number 2 receiver. He should know that he's going to take this and go, because there's press coverage on him. And I'm talking about the guy at the top. There's press coverage with no help. So we're all licking our chops here, expecting the adjustment. We get it. Could have had a better throw here, but we'll take the pass interference call. Okay. And again, you can see everybody else has a locked route. And anyway, good progression there. Good execution. Again, we needed a better throw, but we'll take the pass interference. Okay, on this one here, they uncover the number 2 receiver to the boundary, okay? And they leave him. And so this is a great adjustment by him. Okay, we could have easily taken the out, but both guys are on the right page here, the quarterback and the number 2 guy. Our quarterback just pulls up. He realizes he's uncovered, and he takes the throw. I mean, this is they're trying to show us a zero blitz. They try to disguise it. They bail out, and we make a big play down to the 8-yard line.
Yeah, and this is exactly what I'm talking about, the decision making in with the young quarterbacks, right? Like, this has to be seen pre-snap. But again, what would you tell a young quarterback in a play like this, where his focus, like where his eyes should be, and the reaction to going to the boundary number 2?
Yeah, well, what he should be thinking about is he should be inspecting the boundary, which means he's going to be looking at the contour for over top of number 1 and number 2. And so what he probably is thinking, okay, I've got a chance at taking the out. But now all of a sudden he sees this boundary half move like this. And I'm very proud of the fact that he was able to recognize this. He wasn't just locked in. He saw the whole picture, and he sees now that number 2 becomes uncovered. And so this, you asked the question about how long does it take? I mean, this is Ben Miracle. He's in his 2nd year here, I believe. And so, we put a lot of reps into this play. And the receiver is Caleb Beaver, who at this stage was in his 4th year, and he had a lot of reps at running this play. So he kind of realized, and he's hoping that the quarterback will see this, and this was a good decision on his part. I'll say this, that, we ran this in the CFL, and Paul LaPolice, we would run this at Winnipeg, and we had one guy that we wanted to run this, and he got very good at it, and we just kept doing it over and over, and we had a lot of trust in him.
And that's the key point right there. Like Caleb Beaver in his 4th year there,
yeah,
he's seen a lot of it. So, and then this is probably a message to all the coordinators out there. And I'm probably guilty of it too. Maybe yourself, is that when you really love a play, don't quit on it. Like if you ran it like in one game and you ran it 10 times and you only were hitting 30%. It's just probably one of those games. But if you like, I feel that we coordinators, we build these playbooks, but we quit on some of these plays because it doesn't work.
Well, the thing that I think you have to be aware of is that, if you've had success, and I'm not sure what level of play that you're at, most of the times, and I coached in the summer this summer. And as we got closer and closer to the championship, these defensive coaches, they're pretty good. They see that you're running this, and they're going to find a way to take it away from you. You know what I mean? And so, I realize that I have to give those guys some credit. You know what I mean? Anyway, this is the same play. Our number 2 receiver should have been running the dig here. Because he sees the corner fold over like this. Anyway, he doesn't, and our under is taken away. And so good job by the quarterback to go right through the progression to the 4th player and dump the ball off to the running back. And so this little pass here, is a little bit what I was talking about, is having pocket mechanics and, ability to step up in the pocket and make this a very short little pass. But he throws it very accurately, and this is a great player that he's giving the ball to. And so this little 5-yard dunk that we just do in the hallway sometimes is turning into a huge play. just because quarterback went right through his progression, did a good job of sliding, steps in the pocket, and then finds his alternative. So this is something that, you look at this and, you could tie this into a very simple drill and, just be the coach, wave him through his progression, and then, make him make a funny body throw. You can see where this is, not the greatest. This isn't a textbook style of throw. A little bit like Josh Allen did a couple times on the weekend, but these things come up a lot and they save you. This is Waterloo, Ron, if you wanted to say anything about the crowd. They actually have a better crowd this time. Anyway, this time we get to the dig. So he's going through his progression. He doesn't like the out. He looks at the high-low, and he takes the dig.
Yeah, I wasn't going to go there. That day looks like a sunny day. The day we were there was mostly cloudy.
Yeah. But they did increase ticket sales, and I'll tell you though. I mean, the last couple of years that I've seen them, they really have done a great job, and they've had some really, it's much different, and I'm sure Trey Ford helped all of that. Anyway, so this is an example here again. We don't like the outside throw. The vertical release. I mean, our number 2 receiver should see this guy coming over the top of him and run the dig. The under is not looking good. So now the quarterback he's running to throw. He's running with his eyes downfield, and he's getting to the 4th guy in the progression. And this guy, again, is pretty phenomenal and makes a lot of big plays. A lot of people miss.
Here's a question for you on this the KC concept.
Yeah.
What coverage does it work best against? It doesn't seem to work well against cover 2.
Well, it should be fine against cover 2. If I could just if you imagine this, okay, there should always be a place to go. Against cover 2, your boundary receiver is going to get eaten up. Your number 2 receiver has got a chance to run a dig behind the linebackers. And so you should have a good high-low option there. You know what I mean? From the dig to the under. And then just what's happening here. Now, I'll tell you, we ran this a lot in the summer league this year. And, coordinators started to just kind of man this up a little bit. And we were getting to the running back, much like we were doing here. And they did a great job of manning up on the back. And so that really, it kind of shut things down a little bit. So
yeah, that's one thing I think we don't do enough of is like Lion and Tiger. When you remember, we used to throw to the tailback more, but I think you're starting to see that a little bit more often, where they're dumping the flat pass to the tailbacks.
Sure.
And we had a good one there with Bryce.
Yeah, I could coach Bryce. Bryce is all right. He was a good player. Okay, so here's just think about it yourself. Do you like the comeback? And if it was me, yeah, I would take this throw. Good job by the quarterback. He's throwing on rhythm. He understands what's happening here. He puts the ball in a place where the defender can't catch it. Now, I do a drill where we'll throw the out many, many times. And I'll put a garbage pail 40 yards behind the line of scrimmage on the sideline. And so if that ball is not thrown accurately, the quarterback has to run and touch the garbage pail. Because if the ball is thrown in front or if it's inside the receiver, that means the defender is going to make a play. And so quarterback, you better go run and make a tackle.
The thing I also like what you do with the what do you call it, the under route or the shape. I love these check down plays. Like the way I always coach our quarterbacks is, in high school or provincial ball, you don't have 3 reads, you got 2 reads because things are so quick. The offensive line is probably not as where you want it to be.
Right.
So we always say, obviously the progression read is touchdown, first down, check down, but I do love those check down plays to the shake routes.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the phrase you always use is take the crumbs, and you never know what's going to happen with it. And
That's a good one.
Anyway, this time we ran this out of a 33 setting, and we just did this a little bit different. We put the running back in the number 3 spot, and we just had them run a mesh. And our progression stayed the same.
See, that's what I was talking about earlier. The 33. It's really tough to defend when you got 6 receivers out there. You're putting the defense in a bind.
Well, yeah, there's a lot to it, and it is troublesome. But they're pretty good too. They'll have a way to figure you out,
But another way you can look at it is to alleviate pressure. If you got a team who blitz happy, you take that running back out. Now you can see what they're going to do with their blitz strategy.
Yeah, definitely. Well, the one thing that I'll just say this is, we had that kid that running back there, and he was phenomenal. And so we put him in the slot, and, we ran option with him. I don't know if you remember that. And he was really, really good. He was a very dynamic player. And, teams would adjust the linebacker with him. That was not going to work. When I say that, the Queens, for instance, they tried to do that, and they ran into a lot of problems. I think our Bryce had a great day that day. And then from then on, he was going to get double teamed. And so that opens other things. I think you get the idea of that one. Okay.
Yeah, we're good for the next one.
Okay. I've got many here. And so let me,
yeah, Mavs was a good one.
Okay. Let me show you that then. Okay, so this is basically it's an RPO. Can you see this, Ron?
Yeah, we're good.
Okay. So, oh darn it. I got the wrong picture, but it doesn't matter. If you could just imagine this, our quarterback has 3 decisions to make here. And on this, we're going to decide. In the original one, we just had hitches here by the X and the W, meaning that they're going to run a 6-yard hitch. And on the video, that's what you'll see. Okay. We're thinking that it is a inside zone play. Okay. And so the mistake I made was I grabbed the wrong clip. So what this was basically we're running inside zone, and we're letting the tackle go up to the W, and the quarterback will read the end. On this side here, with the 3 receiver side, the R is responsible for the dime or the Sam, however you describe them. And so if that guy blitzes, he'll run a bubble, and we'll block it on the edge, and the quarterback will toss it out here. If he is not going to come, then the R will block this defender. Okay. And now the quarterback can just look back here. The one thing he can do now is anytime he sees softness, he can take a contour throw, meaning if they are playing off of him, he will just pull up, abort the run, and throw it. So if he does decide to go through with the run play, he has to read the end, and now he's got a possibility of pulling the ball, okay, or giving it, pulling it to run or pulling it to throw. So I think in my first couple of years, I know this was a play that Coach Miller kind of, I'm not sure where he got it. I want to give him credit for inventing it. I copied it. When we had it in Saskatchewan, this was something Darian Durant loved. I would say we ran it close to 60 times. 40 of those would have been would have been runs, and 20 of those would have been passes. It had about a 7.2 yard per call gain. And so it was something that was very, very productive for us. And Darian was a guy that when he got on the edge, he was very productive. So I went through a very complicated explanation and it's a little bit. There's a lot to it, but it's very effective. So let me see if I can get this going. Okay, so right here, we're in a 32 formation. And so what the quarterback has to evaluate, and the one thing that we did was we used a double cadence. So you would think that this is a lot to process, but by doing a double cadence, we can eliminate what we need to decide with on the dime. So right there with the double cadence, we realize the dime is not going to be a factor. He's not going to blitz us. And so we don't need to throw the bubble there. So now our eyes are focused on the backside. And now the quarterback is going to decide right now, okay, can I throw this or should I run the run play? Everybody is going through this at the line of scrimmage as if we're running a run play. Now you notice that we're getting man coverage on the outside. Quarterback decides that he's going to keep it. Okay, he's reading the defensive end. And because it's man coverage, there's no one on the perimeter here. Now, we also had this adjustment made up for press coverage, where if they did press us and we're running hitches, we would call this a gust call, meaning that's a go and a shake. And so we felt that we had a chance to hit the number 2 guy. But the quarterback pulls this, he reads the end, pulls it, and he's got a lot of room in front of him. And this was something that, like I said, Darian Durant loved to do, very effective with it. Okay, and this time we're going to have the same situation. He's going to pull this one. Sorry, he gave this one. Okay, so let's evaluate this. He's looking at this demeanor over to the right side. Doesn't feel like there's going to be a blitz threat by number 3. Okay, so he's now got his eyes focused into the boundary. Doesn't really see a contour where he could just raise up and throw it. Okay, so now he's going to read the defensive end. So the defensive end got burned earlier in the first quarter. And so now he's playing a slow play, shuffle. Quarterback decides to give it, and we'll take this as a 5-yard gain on first down. Okay, this was the one that he pulls. Again, evaluate the front side initially. Okay, you tell that the dime is not coming, so he can make this decision pretty early. Now he's going to be looking and evaluating the boundary. Okay, and he decides that he's going to run the ball. Defensive end gets his eyes inside. He pulls it, and now he's making a great play here. We get an adjustment by number 2, and the quarterback makes a great play, pulls up, and throws it. This was a play that we did a lot, and it really became a staple for us. I should have done it more in Ottawa, and but in my first 3 years, it was something that we did pretty regularly. Okay, so now, again, evaluate the front side. The dime is well off. We know we're not going to be throwing the bubble. Okay, so now evaluate the boundary. He could have pulled up and thrown this to number 2. Okay, but he decides he's going to give it. And so we've got a great player here, and it works pretty well. Okay, so now we're in a hurry-up situation in this game, and he's looking at the dime. The dime is looking pretty suspicious here, okay? And he can tell because through the course of the game, this is what he was doing. This was his demeanor. I'm talking about the dime. He was showing this, and so the dime is coming now. Quarterback kind of suspected this. He could smell a rat, and so pulls it, throws it, and now we're out on the edge, and we've got a positive play.
Yeah, the old grass field at Queens.
Yeah.
And then one thing you tell your quarterbacks, when in doubt, give, right?
Absolutely. So again, same idea. He could just by width, the width advantage that our number 3 receiver has, he could have thrown this to the bubble. Okay. It didn't happen. He decides to give this. And so that worked out pretty well. I mean, we might have called this play maybe 6 or 7 times this game, but all intents and purposes, it may be called that many times, but it never looks the same. There's always a different place to go with the ball. Okay. Now we're evaluating the front side Sam. Okay. He's benign. He's not doing anything. We're going to read the backside. Defensive end is straight up field. Quarterback's got a chance to get out on the edge, and he makes a pretty big play.
Did you always run this play out of 32?
Well, there's other ways of doing it. You could do it. It changes things. It changes the personality or the character of the play. You could do it from 41, and have only one receiver on the backside. It does change things because you get different reactions by formation. Okay, so now he's got a lot of softness to the boundary. Okay, and so rather than force an issue here, okay, he's just going to pull, abort, and just throw it out to the outside guy, and very simple. I mean, this happens a lot on first down where you get softness and uncovered, and so he can just take the throw. So there's a technique to this now. Okay, he's got to step away from the running back if he's going to do this. And you have to be careful if you put this in and you work on it, because this defensive end sometimes will charge straight up field and could knock down a pass. So you want to make sure that you're throwing it to the outside guy and that he's got width. I think this is another throw to the outside guy. No, this is a run. Okay. Okay, so this is against U of T. And so you can see where our number 3 receiver is really trying to keep away from the line of scrimmage so we can see what the Sam is doing. The Sam blitzes. So we get a good reaction here. We get the ball on the perimeter and really like to get it to a guy that can, he's great in space.
Yeah, and they're playing a 30 front too, so a little different look for the quarterback.
Yeah. Again, we evaluated who we needed to read. And so here's another one where I think he should be throwing this. Okay. Yeah, he does. He throws I thought he would throw the bubble. He could have easily taken the bubble here because we got really good leverage advantage.
It's a good thing it was complete, right?
Sure. Well, yeah, you have to, as a coach, you have to live with it and understand,
Absolutely, yeah.
And so you keep encouraging him to take those, to learn. So here's the Sam. Sam is way in the box. We've got great leverage here. So pretty easy decision there. Not sure how many more of these I have.
Oh, that's pretty good, Coach.
Okay.
What's your out of all the concepts that let's say for a high school quarterback, which one would you really tell or suggest to an offense coordinator to really work
it's all dependent on who you have, who's throwing for you and what type of what kind of ability he brings,
right.
And then does he have a strong arm? Can he get the ball out quickly? You want me to show you another one that I think might be a bit more universal?
Sure.
Okay, this is I'll do it quickly. So this our color scheme was quick game. And so it's just a 6-yard hitch with 3 receivers. Usually like to do this to the boundary. There's adjustments that go with this based on leverage, based on depth of the secondary. What we're trying to do is you want to read where the softness is. If you have a uncovered player, say right here, you want to know what this guy is doing beside him. If he stays uncovered, then you throw it. If he buzzes out here, then you toss it here. Okay. The key thing is find where the softness is and then read the player inside of it. I'm not sure if that is clear, but that's how I read it. And let me see if I can illustrate this with some plays.
No, it makes a lot of sense because if it's a high-low type of zone coverage, then yeah, where's the flat player going?
Yeah, and so if you just follow the rule, first of all, the number 3 receiver, if he's uncovered, he should peek, but always dive inside. He has to counsel the defender that's over top of him, so dive inside. You never really want to go outside. So this is a pretty easy look. So both receivers are uncovered. So this is there's no need to really read this out. Just confirm on your first step that you can make this throw to the outside player. Okay. And what you do here is if you got your eyes locked on number 1, okay, what is happening with the defender over top of him? Does he confirm that he's bailing out? And he does. And so we take the throw. If he happened to roll up, then we'd have to make an adjustment and go to number 2. Okay. So keeping that in mind, we have a bunch of these. And you can do it to a 2-receiver surface, but I prefer a 3-receiver surface. Okay, so right here, we're looking at the bottom. Okay, so where is the softness? The softness is on number 1. Okay, so if I'm going to throw to number 1, I know that the defender over top of him is deep. The only guy that can take away the throw is the defender over top of number 2. What does he do? Well, he gets preoccupied with number 87, with the number 2 defender or receiver, and now that gives us access to this throw outside. Very important that, your instructions to number 2 is that he dives inside. He is running a protection release here for the for the throw to go outside.
What would be a coaching point for that receiver to during a game?
Which
if he's
one?
playing,
Which receiver you're talking about?
number 87 to take an inside release.
Well, the key thing is he wants to make sure that he dives inside and makes the defender step with him. The one thing that you have to understand that the receiver has to understand is that guy really can't let you go. And what happens is many times he does let us go. When our quarterback got experienced and realized what was happening, many times this receiver is going to be wide open down this seam right here. Okay. So, this is part of the whole process that he sees that this guy is rerouting. Okay. So that gives us access there. So the coaching point is you want to pass by him as close as you can, lower your shoulder, and you want to try to get right over top of him right away. And the thing that I would like to say is you want to get to 20 yards in 1.5 seconds as best you can, but it has to be inside. So if you can do that, that'll help to hold the defender, and that will give us access to the receiver outside. Now, the receiver outside, he's got to help you, and, he's got to be 6 yards from the sideline. He can't be, if he's right there, he is 11 yards from the sideline, and receivers should know that the bottom of the numbers is 11 yards from the sideline. And so they've got to know where their dimensions are, what they're allowed to be working in. And they should know that distance from the sideline to the top of the numbers, sideline to the bottom of the numbers. They should know that distance very intimately and be able to know that he is under split and he's causing us a problem. We want to stress this guy at the number 2 defender. So that means keep a 6-yard split and allow us to stretch that guy out. I don't know if that helps you, Ron, but
Oh yeah, absolutely. And it keeps the halfback's eyes inside.
yeah.
And I always remember something you always said: protect the integrity of the play. And
Yeah,
that's
well, it's really protect the integrity of the route. But you're right. That's about how that works.
Yeah. Okay.
So, okay, now we've got a little better split by number 1 at the top. Okay, we're looking at the contour at the top. We're getting softness over top of number 1. Okay, so what is happening to number 2? Okay, number 2 is getting preoccupied by the inside release. So now, because we've taken the proper split, quarterback can make an easy read and throw. And this becomes, you can see how this becomes automatic. He's really trusting the release by number 2. Okay, if that release is anything but inside, we're in trouble. But he trusts that we're going to get this inside release, and that allows us to make this throw. And it's like, this is one step. Okay, 1.5 seconds, probably less, and the ball is out. So this could be something that you do for a young guy. I don't know.
You know what, the short game, the quick game, and especially in high school, and really helps them.
Yeah. Okay, so again, where is the low player? He's over top of number 2. This kind of transitions as we motion to it. And again, the same read. Number 2 receiver had softness, so he felt he was going to be viable. He could have been, but you could see how, this is, we've got a good chance here for this. Now, I'll tell you, as you evaluate a quarterback, there's 3 degrees of accuracy. I heard somebody talk about Aaron Rodgers, and I thought it was really good. There's quarterbacks who are accurate and they can hit a door. Then there's quarterbacks who are a bit more accurate and they'll hit the doorknob. And then Aaron Rodgers can fit the ball through a keyhole. So, whenever you're evaluating your quarterback.
That's a good one. I never heard that one.
Yeah. Well, anyway, you get the point. And I can't say enough about the importance of accuracy. And
well, Bill Walsh used to say it all the time. Yeah, I don't want a quarterback who can throw 80 yards. I want a quarterback who can complete footballs.
Right.
Give me a quarterback who can complete 70% of their throws than a quarterback who can throw 80 yards.
Right. So again, if you go through if you evaluate this the same way, where is the low player and where is the soft player? So obviously this is an easy picture for us. Soft player is over top of number 1. The low player is over top of number 2. So what is happening with the number 2 defender? And so he dives inside as well. That gives us an easy throw out here. And that's almost too easy, but you get the idea of how the principle of the read.
Yeah, one thing I heard at a clinic once, and it was really good. When you go to these clinics, you pick up these sayings and keywords, and the thing is, and corners and halves lie, safeties tell the truth.
Yeah, well, that's it. When you're trying to read a secondary, and we haven't talked about that yet, and not sure how much you want to get into that, but that's you can see how this is really, how these guys will do their rotation, and if they've worked together for a long time, they will have an ability to change their cut or hold look. Right here, what's happening on this one now is our number 3 receiver becomes uncovered, and great eyes by the quarterback to see this. This is probably something that might have been talked about on the sideline. It may have predisposed the quarterback's eyes to go there.
Isn't it amazing sometimes in a weekly game plan at halftime that weekly game plan just goes out the window and you just got to make. I always say the best coaches are the ones who make the best adjustments at halftime.
Sure, absolutely. Okay, so I'm not liking what's happening here with number 2. You can see how by him taking this outside release, how it we get away with it, but it can jeopardize our throw.
Yeah. Now, is this a situation where you tell the receiver best release or just inside
Well,
release
no,
always?
again, he's got to see this contour and understand he's got to dive inside. I'm talking about the number 2 guy, right?
Yep.
He's got to take sacrifice himself, because he's got to know, he's got a defender over top of him, and he's not going to get this ball. This was a little bit too easy. Could have gone to either guy. Anyway, I think you get the idea there. Ron, where do you want me to go to next?
Yeah, sorry. So let me go back to the we just had a few questions here.
Sure.
Or we had my mute on, sorry. So Craig Smith says, so much respect for Coach Barresi. Troy was one of the toughest guys I've come across in my time in the CFL.
Yeah.
And we have Sonny Wolf. He mailed in a question saying, why play 3-down football? It seems to me that 4-down football at every level except U Sports and CFL in Quebec has helped develop better players. Fewer punt returns results in more offensive and defensive plays. And, that could be a debate that's been going on for 20 years, right?
Yeah, I know. I grew up in the Hamilton High School League. We had 4-down football. What it did for us was we had a good coach who could coach the run game. And so it gave us hope that, we could run it. I was the quarterback, and we really didn't have much hope if it was going to be 3 downs. If it was 4 downs, now it's a little different story, and you can stay on the field longer. He's totally accurate about, less punting, etc. The high school system in Hamilton at the junior level, they're doing that now. And there's a big advantage for it. I totally get it. I lived in both the 4-down and 3-down world. I expressed my feelings about what was so great about being in the U.S. running 4-down football, and how it developed fullbacks and tight ends.
Oh,
now,
in 2013, yeah, sorry.
Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, in 2013, a player very well, Jackson Bennett. We had him at the Dukes, and we ran the wing T.
Yeah,
and you can't run the wing T in 3-down football. It's really tough to do.
Well,
you get that extra, extra down, and you get a phenomenal running back like Jackson Bennett. And the offensive line that year was phenomenal as well. It's probably one of the best offensive lines I've ever had. But if it wasn't for 4-down football, I don't think, we were a 5-3 team that year. We went into the playoffs running the wing T, and Jackson Bennett scored 7 touchdowns that game in the championship game. So, yeah, well, I'm a big fan of it.
Yeah, no. And I mean, if we were doing, when you think about empty formation really is in many ways it's blasphemous really for football when you think about what you just said. And Coach Paterno would always talk about when he was in high school how they ran the single wing, and I was fascinated to listen to him talk about it. And he would talk about all the great single wing teams and how it would work. And when I coached in Florida, they ran 4-down football, and many schools did not have a thrower, a quarterback, but they had great athletes. And the single wing offense was amazing to watch these schools operate with the speed that they had, and they could put on the flank, and get outside, and everybody was going to get the ball. And it really, there's a lot to be said for doing that. And you kind of up here, I think we lose that, that element of, I don't know too many people who know much about single wing, but it's a big thing in the U.S. high schools. And particularly if you don't have a throwing guy in your school.
Yeah, no, and it's and also another thing that when we talk single wing or even wing T, the you know how much fun the offensive linemen have by pulling. Like like when you tell the offensive linemen, like the guards are going to be pulling, they're going to be smiling like a butcher's dog, because that's all they're tired of pass blocking, and they love pulling. They want to get on those counters and powers and traps. You know, the base blocking is great for the leads and the dives. But
Yeah.
you tell an offensive lineman that your system is going to involve a lot of counters, a lot of powers and traps, man. They love that. The offensive line, they love to move.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no doubt. Good point. Yeah, so I'm not sure where you want me to go.
Yeah, you were talking about coverages.
Yeah, so I'm not quite certain what you want to do there. I mean, I don't really have anything prepared necessarily. I will say this about reading coverages. And so a couple things that I think are very important is that you understand how to use a formation. And different formations are going to lend themselves to different coverages. So I've always said this, that your formations are like your weapons. And so by understanding how that weapon works, how that formation works, and what it dictates to a defense is the first key to understanding how to read a defense. So for me, if I'm reading a defense and I'm going to help a quarterback, the first thing I'm going to do is present to him a formation tape. And I know that's not easy to do in, the lower levels, but, we would have cut ups, and I would make sure that I have a cut up of, here's 32 formation. This is what you're going to expect. Okay. In order to read coverages, you better know the personnel. And so the first thing that I felt was important when I was with the BC Lions, we made a point of putting the numbers on the scout team. Okay. This is where number 32 is going to play. He's the free safety. These are his tendencies. So we would have somebody demonstrate that at practice. Here's where the will linebacker is going to play. This is his number. These are his tendencies. So you need to know, first of all, what are their tendencies by formation. That is a key thing. Who are the guys that you need to focus on? Okay. Most of the time, it's going to be your free safety and your support players. The corners, like you say, they can lie to you, but your support players are going to be the Sam, and it could be the boundary half or the will. So you need to know how they are aligned. And so what are the alignments for the free safety? Where is he going in relationship to a 3-by-2 formation? And then, you work from there. What is happening with the Sam linebacker and what is happening with the boundary half? Those three guys should be on a string, basically. That's without me knowing a whole lot about defense, but that will give you an idea. If the Sam is going to blitz, that free safety has got to rotate. Okay. Somebody's got to cover for him, unless they are a zone blitz team. Okay. So that's another rabbit hole that you can dive into. Are they a zone blitz team? Who is the blitzer? What area do they give up? If they are blitzing and they are rotating as a result of blitz, okay, how is the Sam how is the free safety relating to the Sam? If it's the boundary half, how is he going to relate to the boundary half? How is the boundary half going to show his rotation? So those three guys are really, they're in many ways the key to reading what you're going to get. If you see them both off, the safety, when I say that too, or both, I'm talking about the safety and the boundary half. If they're both off, chances are you're going to be in a benign situation, no blitzing. If one of them is coming down low and you see a rotation, then you can expect something to be happening there.
That's a great point, because you know what, we were so focused on that one indicator that you really got to balance out those indicators. And then I never thought about looking at the safety and the boundary half, because when you look at the strong and the weak side of the field, obviously the safety can't be in both. So and again, like you say, you talk about formations.
Right.
And if you're in a 32 formation to the strong side of the field, then yeah, that's a great tip for young quarterbacks to really grab those indicators. That's the key word I like to use a lot, is find those indicators to help you with a pre-snap decision so you can make a good decision post-snap. So I like
Right.
that.
So the thing that, for me, yeah, I will train them about this stuff. I'll talk to them about this. They have to keep in mind what type of progression we're using. They have to understand, when I go back to my days with Danny McManus, for him, if the middle of the field was open, okay, he knew that was 1+. If there was somebody in the middle of the field, he had total confidence that we were going to pick up. They were not bringing 1+. You know what I mean? For the most part, unless we got into a zone situation. But he always felt that he was going to be protected. And I'm making this very simple, but it's not. But he always felt, if he got hit and there was this guy in the middle of the field, he wouldn't be upset, but he would wonder, this shouldn't have happened. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Now, if the middle of the field vacated, he realized that his clock had to speed up. And, then he wasn't, then he would understand that it was on him to be able to release the ball. That's putting it in a very simple term. The thing that, I came to realize is the way we operated our protection in Hamilton at that time, it was very, very advanced. And so we were popping our guards. We would pop a tackle, we pop the center, and we would direct them to go all the way across the formation to pick up the loose player.
Wow.
And so that's what I tried to instill when I went to Ottawa. I realized how difficult that was to teach. But we were at a very, very advanced level when I was in Hamilton. And it's very hard to do that and to allow the quarterback that type of comfort that Danny had at that time. But that we had a veteran crew, and they were making calls along the line of scrimmage, like a jet call, which told us that we had a free player coming from, this side of the field. Our backside guard would know that, if he's uncovered, whoever was uncovered, they knew that where they had to be directed. Quarterback, he was under the assumption, if I have a single player in the middle of the field, that means they can't give us 1+. I should be covered.
Yeah.
And it was really a beautiful thing to watch. And very hard to it took, those were some veteran guys there on the offensive line, a veteran quarterback. And so that's putting it in a very simple term. I used to call it a chameleon protection, meaning that anybody on the offensive line could be doing anything to protect it. We had a lot of tools in our toolbox, which could redirect the offensive line. And the bottom line for the quarterback was he could just see a single high and realize he was protected. Again, that's not.
Oh, it's really tough for young quarterbacks.
Pardon me?
It's really tough for young quarterbacks.
Oh yeah. Well, it's tough. It's tough. It puts a lot of stress. I remember doing it, trying to coach it. I mean, you saw the amount of time we did in blitz pickup and how, that was very, it was stressful. So,
yeah. Oh, it was intense. Yeah. And it's just decision-making, right? And it's just, everybody's got to be in the film room, in the playbook, and communication. That's one thing that I'm really stressing a lot with the quarterback, especially communicating, because you get these different quarterbacks who are very shy and don't talk much. Then you got some real strong leaders out there. But with that, keeping on that same thought with young quarterbacks qualities, what does specifically the qualities, if I'm a young quarterback and I want to know what does it take to play in the youth sports and in a youth sports program, what are the qualities coaches are looking for? Because all these kids today, they're finishing their high school provincial ball, they're sending film, and a lot of them, they might be a little bit like, I'll always remember when I went to Ottawa U the first year, and I remember all the players saying, I'm going to play youth sports. And I went to that first training camp and I said, wow, this is something I've never seen before. And I don't think a lot of players really understand the mental aspect of a first year university training camp to some of these players, what they're really getting themselves into. And until they get there, they really don't know.
Yeah. So I'm trying to find something here, and it relates to the qualities of a quarterback. The one thing I would say to you, I mean, if you came to our place, we've got some great people in our room. Keegan Hall, he's our quarterback. I mean, if you saw this guy, he's a very intense note taker. You know, and the other guys in the room follow suit with him. And so that's, I mean, he's a student of the game. There's just no question about it. And he doesn't want it. He's very meticulous, very diligent. Things have got to be done in a certain way. And he has high expectations of himself. So that's the one thing, you just can't be the guy that's everything that he does, he wants to be the best at it, the best he can be. And so that relates to him being an example for the rest of the team. And it not only for his own life, but in a leadership role, he really embodies that. That's very important to him. Okay.
Yeah.
And that goes without saying about having to be able to play the position. You've got to be able to have that type of expectation of yourself. The next thing is that you've just got to be an all-out competitor. I loved what I copied this. I brought it up to our guys. I loved what Nick Saban would say about how he had total respect for great competitors. He would compare them to Freddy Krueger. And when I say that, you watch the Freddy Krueger movie and you think you got him dead, and the next thing you know, he's sticking a hand out, and now we're going all over again. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You just can't kill the guy.
Yeah.
And so that was a great analogy that I think is really appropriate. These guys, you just can't. You've always got to be able to provide hope for your players, for the guys that follow you, and and so you've got to be fighting all the time. So Freddy Krueger, I would love to get a picture of Freddy Krueger, and with his hand sticking out of the wall, and he's got one arm that's amputated, and blood coming down his face. He looks like he's dead, but he just can't.
He just wants to keep going.
Yeah. So I mean,
but that's the mental aspect. But how does a quarterback, like, say because a lot of times what happens is the light bulb goes off when they're in grade 12, and then they don't, and then they want to play at a high level. And obviously Cégep is always a great route. But what do you tell a quarterback who's like grade 10, grade 11 that wants to play youth sports, not from a mental aspect, from a competitive, physical aspect of where they should be, like, where they should be playing? Do they stay in high school? Do they play provincial? Like, how do they get to because you know what? I went to a camp once, and it was in Rutgers, and I talked to the coach. I said, look, I see a lot of kids come to these camps, and I go, will you ever recruit a player, without even, seeing their game film or anything, but you're just seeing them at the camp? And he says, you know what? If they come to a camp and they pass the eye test and you can see they're athletic, we'll take a chance on that player. But not every player is going to be like a freak of nature when it comes to their physical abilities, right? It's just like I said before. I think players need to play in a very competitive league, so that way, obviously, their film will be better. But if you don't play in a competitive league, it's going to be tough to get film, because you're a youth sports. You were a head coach. When you see different types of film, and you see a film from like a very good, like, say, Herman in Windsor, good program back then, London Central, and then you get films that, the high school is not as competitive. Like, what would you tell those quarterbacks, to keep them motivated to not give up, and to their dream of playing high school or university sports?
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm not quite sure I know exactly what you're getting at here, but the thing that they have to understand is, if I'm the coach, I would try to expose them to the upper level. If they want to play youth sports, they need to come and watch practice. They need to hopefully befriend a youth sport quarterback, maybe that's been around the block a little bit. They need to hopefully come and visit someplace and see what these kids go through. You know what I mean? Go to a meeting, follow follow them around campus and see what their life is like. It's pretty could be inspirational, it could be intimidating, it could be enlightening. Anyway, I'm not sure I know if I'm answering this question the way you wanted to.
No, it's exactly, yeah, no, that's exactly where I was going with that. What is, like, and we'll finish off with this. What is your idea of a complete quarterback? Well, I know it's a loaded question, but
it is a loaded question. And, for me, they come in all shapes and sizes. And I've had success with guys who don't fit the one formula. You know what I mean? They're all different. Some of the common things are, the drive to excel, the ability or the wanting to compete, the earnestness to be in a big game. They want to do well in everything that they are doing. You know what I mean? There's a certain amount of pride. Now, that's aside from any type of athletic ability, mental acuity, etc. This is all. There's got to be this motivating factor that's going to be that's the common thing. Okay, so that would be the number one thing. You can kind of sense it. I mean, Coach Paterno, he would always. He was kind of an amazing guy in the sense that he said, I could just smell a winner. Kid would walk in the room and he said, I could smell a winner. That's what he would say. Yeah. And, his instincts, he was pretty good with this. And, he could size a kid up pretty quickly. And, I remember him at different recruiting visits. And he would say, you know what, you're going to be the captain of our team in 4 years. And, wow. So that was his ability. And so just having that, sometimes you can just smell them.
Yep.
He was really good at it. So, yeah. Anyway.
Okay.
I'm not sure if I've answered that.
Oh, completely. Absolutely. No, it's a competitive nature. Yeah.
I will say this. And this, again, when I was at Penn State, it was a very selective process that we had. There, we had summer camp. We had 3 weeks of summer camp. There would be 1,000 kids at camp. 200 of those kids would be quarterbacks. They all aspired. Many of them went to other schools, big schools. It was, so we had our pick. And, it was amazing how many kids that we didn't take, they went on to other places. And eventually we would have to watch the film of the kids, and we remembered, how they performed at our camp. And the one question that would always come up, and not to say that this was a foolproof way of evaluating, but the one question that always came up in the room when the film was on was, how many people are watching this game? So it relates to what you were talking about, basically, is, what is the level of competition? And so the one thing that we, that comes through on that point is this a state championship game? Is this kid playing at the highest level in the league that he is playing at, or is he playing against the last place team in his league, and he's on a team that has a record of, that maybe not so good? So this is something that had to be evaluated. And it's not always that easy. Again, we had our pick. It was kind of, when I was there, I felt that life was going to be like this all the time. And that, kids would just, want to come to wherever I was. I learned quickly when I went to Wake Forest, it wasn't like that. It wasn't like we could just pick up the phone and say, well, you want to come here, it just wasn't like that at the other schools.
Yeah.
But yeah. So anyway, that's kind of, are they excelling at a very high stage? That was always like the thing that that stuck with me and, was very important.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. All right, coach, that's you
Can
gave me
I
more than
share
enough hour.
something with you?
Yeah, for sure.
This is can you see this?
Yeah, I see Ottawa U. I see
No. Okay,
looks
what
like
I'm trying to show here.
I see well,
Do you see the two figures?
oh no, I don't see that. I don't see that.
Okay. I'm gonna
Not
do
yet.
this. Can you see that now?
Nope, not yet.
Okay.
There you go. There, I see it now.
You see it?
Yep.
Okay, so this was something that was given to me, and I think it was really cool. And this is to it goes like this. This is to the parents who are so dedicated to their children's sport. A friend asked me, why spend so much money and time on your child to train for football or any other sport? And the guy says, well, I answer you like this. I have a confession to make. I don't pay because my son trains and plays. You know why I'm paying? I pay for my son to learn how to be disciplined. I pay for my son to learn to take care of his body and mind. I pay for my son to learn to work with others and be a good teammate. I pay for my son to learn how to deal with disappointment when he doesn't get what he expected, but he knows I have to work harder. I pay for my son to learn to reach his goals. I pay for my son to understand that it takes hours and hours to work hard and training to get a championship, and that success doesn't happen overnight. I pay for the opportunity my son will have to make lifelong friendships. I pay for my son to be on the field and not in front of the TV. I pay for those times when my son gets so tired, he just wants to lay down and doesn't think or has time to be lazy or into bad things. I pay for all the teachings that this beautiful sport gives you: responsibility, humility, dedication, friendship, coexistence, etc., etc. I could go on, but make it short. But to make it short, I don't pay for the internship. I pay for the opportunities. Come on. Oh, darn. Just a second. I pay for the opportunity this sport offers my son to develop attributes and skills that will be very useful throughout his life and give him the opportunity to value life. For what I've seen till today, I think it is my best investment.
Oh, that's
I'll leave it at that.
no, that's absolutely, and me, and you know what? Just to echo that, our vision, like our mission statement at Capital QBs, is to help develop the complete quarterback. But our vision statement, and using my military background, is to really develop honorable integrity. I always tell the players, like at the end of the day, when football's over, you want to be that guy that people can really depend on. Like when you're done and people come up to you and say, you know what, you want to get that guy to work for you. You want to be on that guy's team. Like that's the guy you want to hire. Maybe that's the guy you wanted your daughter to marry. That's the vision of creating leaders, and that echoes right exactly what this guy is saying too. I 100% agree with that.
Right.
And great job, Jamie, says Greg Smith, with that. Hey, coach, you know what? Again, I asked for like maybe an hour and a half, but you know what? Anytime we can get in the room and people, I know the way you are, and it's just I feel so great that people can see you in this podcast and see exactly how much you love the game of football and what you've given to the game of football, and people really appreciate you coming on here. And again, anytime you're in Ottawa, we should hook up for a coffee somewhere, or you know what, maybe I've been getting messages from people, a lot of players in Toronto asking me to do a camp in Toronto. I said maybe the guy I need to talk to is Coach Barresi, and maybe after one of our Myers and Toronto Hamilton games, we can probably hook up on a Sunday or something.
Yeah, sure thing.
But
Well,
that
I
would be
really
awesome.
appreciate. I'm very honored to be here. I really appreciate the invite, and so thanks a lot for letting me do this. It was great. So
Well, thank you so much,
hope
Coach.
somebody got something out of it.
Awesome. And again, if people are watching online, I want to thank you guys for dealing with our lag time here on the internet connection. I know my next call is to Rogers to get this figured out here. But I want to thank all the people who are watching. And again, this is recorded. It's going to be on the Capital QB's website. It's going to be on our also our YouTube channel. So 2 hours and a half of great information. And again, Coach, I want to thank you. And we'll stay in touch. And hopefully we'll. Hey, I'm hoping the Myers and Hamilton meet somewhere down the road this summer.
Okay. Yeah. Likewise. Thanks a lot, Ron. Appreciate it.
All right, Coach. Have a great night. Thanks a
You
lot.
too. Thanks. Okay. Bye.
Okay, bye now.